Have you ever sat quietly and wondered, when did the tone change? It used to be different, didn't it? Your children once looked up to you with wide, wondering eyes. They listened to your every word, trusted your wisdom, asked for your guidance like it was a precious compass. But now, sometimes they barely hear you. Sometimes you speak, and their eyes stay fixed on their phone screens. Sometimes it feels like you've become a background character in a life you once shaped. You might hear it in their voice, a sharpness, a sigh, the way they interrupt, or the way they assume you don't understand the world anymore. You might feel it when they stop asking for your thoughts, not out of confidence, but because they no longer believe you have anything new to offer. And it hurts. It's not about wanting control. It's about wanting dignity, about wanting to be treated, not like someone who's in the way, but someone who still holds value. There's a particular kind of silence that grows when a parent starts to feel small in the eyes of their adult children. Not because they've done something wrong, but because time, routine, and unspoken assumptions have slowly dimmed the light of respect. And yet, here's the truth. No one says out loud. You don't have to demand respect with your voice to receive it. You can teach it silently, gently, powerfully. Because respect doesn't always rise from what you say. Often, it grows from how you live. I want to tell you about a woman named Claire. She's 73. Her daughter, now in her 40s, had slowly taken on a tone that felt more managerial than loving. She corrected Claire constantly how she used her phone, how she cooked, how she talked to the grandkids. Claire felt herself pulling back, apologizing for things she didn't even feel sorry for. And one day, after another dinner where she was gently ridiculed, Claire didn't say a word. She simply got up the next morning and signed up for a watercolor class she'd been putting off for years. She started walking each morning, wearing a bright pink scarf, nodding at the sunrise like it was made just for her. She began posting her paintings online, quietly, no fanfare, no explanation. Her daughter started noticing. "Mom," she said one afternoon, "those paintings are really something. I didn't know you had that in you." Claire smiled. "I've always had it. I just stopped showing it." And just like that, the energy shifted. Because sometimes the first silent way you teach people to respect you again is by respecting yourself first. You show them not with lectures, not with long talks, but with the way you carry your own life, that you are still here, still full of color, still growing. Madeline, another beautiful soul I've spoken to, shared her own quiet rebellion. She'd spent years trying to keep up with everyone else's schedules, hosting holidays, rearranging appointments, always being available, until she realized that the more she gave, the more invisible she became. So she started doing something radical for someone so used to putting others first. She began saying no, not with attitude, just clarity. "No, I won't be able to watch the kids that day. I have plans." No apologies, no explanations. And at first, there was pushback. "What plans?" they'd ask. "You're retired. What else do you have going on?" But Madeline held her ground. Her plans, even if they were just coffee with a neighbor or an afternoon nap, mattered. And slowly, they started realizing that her time wasn't free just because her calendar looked open. They stopped assuming. They started asking. That's when she knew respect had returned. Because here's another silent way. You teach your children to respect you. Again, you stop over-explaining. You trust that your no is enough. You begin to treat your time as valuable. And so they start doing the same. Nathan, a soft-spoken grandfather who'd spent years cleaning up after everyone else's mistakes, came to a similar realization. He used to think his love was best shown in how quickly he could rescue people. But that love often left him exhausted and unappreciated. Then one day, he didn't jump in. He stayed quiet when his son made a poor financial decision. He didn't offer to cover it. He didn't call to check in. He simply waited. And when his son finally reached out, not for money, but for advice, Nathan didn't say, "I told you so." He simply said, "I believe you can figure this out." It was subtle, gentle, but in that moment, he gave his son both the dignity of his own responsibility and the quiet reminder that Nathan was no longer trying to prove his usefulness by cleaning up every mess. And in return, his son began to call more, ask more, respect more. because Nathan wasn't reacting anymore. He was choosing, and that's what respect looks like. It's not loud. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't scold. It lives in small, quiet moments when you stand in your own worth without apology. You teach your children to respect you again, not by raising your voice, but by raising your standards for yourself, how you speak to yourself, how you treat your own time, how you let go of things that no longer nourish you. Because the most powerful lessons don't come through lectures. They come through presence. You become the kind of person others pause to notice, not because you demanded it, but because your light is steady and it draws the right kind of attention back to you. There's something incredibly steadying about deciding, deep in your spirit, that you no longer need to prove your place in anyone's life. That you're no longer here to earn what should have always been freely given respect, presence, regard. And the moment that shift happens, even if silently, it sends ripples through every relationship you have, especially with your children. Because whether they realize it or not, your quiet confidence changes the way they move around you. It's not about putting up walls. It's about creating a kind of inner gravity where you no longer chase, and they slowly begin to return on their own. I remember Lily, a retired school counselor. She used to explain everything, why she said no to a request, why she had a boundary, even why she felt hurt by something someone said. She did it because she believed that if people just understood her better, they'd treat her better. But what she learned, over many years, was that people who truly respect you don't need that much explaining. And those who don't respect you, well, no amount of explanation ever changes how they see you. So she stopped, not coldly, but calmly. When her daughter made a sharp comment about her being too sensitive, Lily didn't argue. She didn't send a follow-up text to explain how much it stung. She simply paused, nodded, and the next time they met, she chose not to bring it up. Not because it didn't matter, but because she realized her peace mattered more. And interestingly, over time, her daughter began to soften, not because Lily made her feel guilty, but because Lily stopped pouring her energy into defending her dignity and simply began to live it. That's one of the most powerful silent ways you teach someone to respect you. You stop fighting to be understood. You speak when needed. You hold silence when it serves you. And you let your choices speak in ways words never could. Lucas, who spent most of his life being the peacekeeper in his family, began practicing something similar. He had always gone along with whatever was easiest, agreeing even when he didn't, staying silent during arguments, showing up when he was tired, just to avoid upsetting anyone. But it left him hollow, and it showed. His grown kids stopped asking him what he wanted. They assumed he'd go along with anything, that he didn't really have needs. And when they stopped seeing him as someone with preferences, they slowly stopped seeing him with respect. So Lucas started small. One Sunday, when his son asked if he could host the next family dinner again, Lucas replied gently, "Not this time. I'm going to the lake that weekend." It wasn't dramatic, but it was different, and it took his son by surprise. "Really? You're going to the lake?" "Yes," Lucas smiled. "I've wanted to for a while. I think I've earned a slow weekend." And something in that moment shifted. His son nodded, and a week later, called just to ask how the trip went. Sometimes people forget who you are, because you've spent too long being who they needed. But when you start remembering yourself, others begin remembering too. You show them you're not just the helper, the host, the background support. You're a whole person, and whole people don't beg to be seen. They simply live, fully, and let the light of their presence draw others in. And sometimes, one of the most radical, silent ways to command respect is to start doing things that are just for you. No agenda, no audience, just for joy. Abigail, for instance, took up singing again at age 76, not because anyone suggested it. In fact, her daughter laughed gently when she mentioned joining the local seniors choir. "You, Mom, singing?" "Yes," Abigail said, without flinching. "Me." She started practicing in her living room, off-key at first, then stronger. She didn't hide it. She didn't explain it. And a few months later, her daughter surprised her by coming to the recital. Afterward, she hugged her mother and said, "I'm proud of you." That's what happens when you begin to glow from within. It confuses people at first. Then, it inspires them, because what they see in you is what they've forgotten in themselves. The courage to live without waiting for permission. Respect doesn't always come when you ask for it, but it often returns when you stop needing it so badly and start embodying it instead. And here's something you may already know deep down. Sometimes, teaching your children to respect you again doesn't begin with words at all. It begins with your posture, your rhythm, your refusal to let other people's hurried lives erase your presence. It begins when you start dressing for yourself again, taking care of your body again, not for youth, but for strength. It begins when you light a candle at dinner, even if no one's joining you. When you take yourself out for lunch with your chin up, your back straight, and your heart open, not waiting for someone to affirm your worth, but already believing in it. And it begins, especially, when you let go of needing their attention in order to feel valued. Because here's the beautiful truth: when you value yourself again, their attention often comes back on its own. But even if it doesn't, you are no longer starving for it. You're too full of your own light, and that light, that is what they will remember. Not the lectures, not the scolding, not the strained conversations. They'll remember the quiet strength in your presence, the gentle but unshakable way you began to live again. And that is how they learn to respect you again. There's something unshakable about a person who no longer needs to be convincing to be heard, who doesn't rush to fill silence with explanations, who simply lives intentionally, gently, and fully. You begin to notice it in the smallest moments. The way you stop apologizing for saying no, the way you take your time responding, rather than feeling rushed to agree, the way you look in the mirror and smile. Not because everything's perfect, but because you no longer see yourself through anyone else's eyes but your own. That kind of presence doesn't demand respect. It commands it, and not through power or control, but through calm. Owen, a quiet man in his 70s who had been the emotional backbone of his family for decades, found himself beginning to fade in the very circle he'd once held together. His children had grown, they were busy, distracted, and somewhere along the way, he began to feel like he was speaking into a void. They'd show up to family dinners late, half-hearted in their conversations, glued to their phones. They interrupted, forgot things he'd told them, rarely asked about his life. And still, Owen kept hosting, smiling, making it all work, until one weekend, he didn't. He sent a message to the group and said, "I'm taking this weekend for myself. No dinner this time." There was confusion, a few questions, but no fight. He spent that weekend alone, not out of sadness, but out of renewal. He read, took a walk in the woods, cooked something just for him. And when Monday came, something unexpected happened. His daughter called. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm good," Owen replied. "Actually, I'm more than good. I needed a little time to breathe." She was quiet, then said, "I didn't realize you felt that way." And just like that, a door opened, not because Owen pushed it, but because he stopped holding it open for everyone else while neglecting himself. Sometimes respect comes back. Not when you demand it, but when you let go of the roles that required you to keep proving you deserve it. Because when your children see you living with boundaries, with joy, with calm self-containment, it reorients how they relate to you. You're no longer the fixer, the helper, the one who fills every gap. You become something far more powerful, a person they look up to again. Madeline, who had been overly available for years, babysitting, cooking, helping with errands, realized she was beginning to feel more like a service than a mother. Her kindness, though sincere, had become expected. She never got a thank you, never got asked how she was doing, never got seen, so she pulled back. She didn't make a speech. She didn't guilt anyone. She simply started choosing herself. When they asked if she could babysit, she sometimes said yes, but just as often, she said no. When they dropped by unannounced, she wasn't always available. She had plans, a walk, a bath, a coffee date with a friend, and slowly, the tone changed. They started calling before showing up, started asking how she was before listing their needs, started seeing her again. Because when you stop overextending, you teach people to respect your space, not with confrontation, but with clarity. And there's a reason this works. Because people respond not just to what you say, but to what you embody. When you carry yourself with self-respect, others are more likely to follow your lead, not because you've taught them a lesson, but because your presence has become steady enough to mirror something back to them. They begin to ask themselves, often unconsciously, what changed? And what changed is you. You started living as though you deserve respect, and that truth echoes. Nathan, who had always filled silence with cheerful chatter, decided one day to embrace the quiet. He noticed that at family gatherings, he was always the one asking questions, keeping the mood light, steering conversations away from conflict. But he started to feel tired, not physically, soul tired. He stopped trying to carry every conversation, and for the first time, the room filled with a little awkwardness. But out of that silence, something interesting happened. His granddaughter turned to him and asked, "Grandpa, what do you think about that?" He blinked, surprised, and then smiled, because in letting the silence be, he created space for someone else to listen. That's another quiet, powerful way to teach respect. Stop filling every space. Trust that what you withhold is just as important as what you give. And trust that your restraint, your stillness, your refusal to jump in too quickly will leave a stronger impression than any clever words ever could. You don't need to be the glue that holds everyone together. You just need to be the core that holds yourself together. And when your children, your grandchildren, your community see that you are whole, not needy, not desperate for connection, but grounded, they begin to move differently around you, more gently, more thoughtfully, more respectfully. Because the truth is, people sense when you've stopped chasing their attention. And in that space, they often come closer not out of guilt, but out of admiration. You've stopped trying to control how they see you. You've started controlling how you show up. And that, dear one, is the kind of energy that cannot be ignored. So you keep doing those small, quiet things. You keep holding your no with softness. You keep taking walks alone because they make you feel free. You keep dressing in ways that make you feel beautiful, not for anyone else, but for you. You keep nourishing yourself, not to prove you're strong, but because you already are. And in doing so, you become a living reminder, not just to your children, but to yourself, that respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you become. If you're still here with me, thank you. That tells me you're someone who's still willing to grow, even now. Someone who believes, deep down, that it's not too late to be respected, not just in name, but in presence. And you're right. You see, respect isn't a gift our children automatically give us just because we raised them. It's a living relationship. And like any relationship, it needs attention, reflection, boundaries, and most of all, truth. And the truth is, your strength has never been in what you do for others. It's always been in who you are, even when no one's looking. That quiet resilience, that steadiness, that willingness to keep loving, even when it hurts, to keep giving, even when it goes unseen. But now is your time to turn some of that care inward, not to become distant, but to become centered, to show your children not just how to treat you, but how to treat themselves, by watching you live with self-respect. Because whether they say it aloud or not, your children are always learning from you. They're watching how you carry yourself after retirement, how you speak when others talk over you, how you respond when your needs are ignored. And when they see you standing tall, not with arrogance, but with clarity, they begin to remember something. They remember that you were never just mom or dad. You were a whole person before they ever arrived, and you still are. So if no one has told you lately, you don't have to earn space in their lives. You already belong, but belonging and begging are not the same. You don't have to overgive to be worthy. You don't have to soften your truth to be loved. You don't have to explain your boundaries to be respected. You only have to live them. Live them with grace. Live them with calm. Live them with that quiet kind of power that doesn't need to be loud because it's steady. You don't need to prove your importance by saying yes when you want to say no. You don't need to chase connection. You are connection. And the more you stand in that truth, the more your children will feel it. They may not say it immediately. They may not even understand what's changed. But they'll feel the difference. They'll feel the strength behind your silence, the peace in your no, the lightness in your laughter when you no longer shape yourself to their comfort. And something in them will shift, even if just a little. Maybe they'll start calling more thoughtfully. Maybe they'll listen more patiently. Maybe, one day, they'll even say, "I see you." But whether they do or not, you'll know. You'll know that you've shown them, in the softest and strongest of ways, what respect truly looks like. And that lesson, that's a legacy. So now, I want to gently turn this over to you. Have you noticed that the way your children treat you has changed with time? Have you found yourself becoming quieter? Not because you have nothing to say, but because you're tired of not being heard. And have you started making small shifts, saying no, choosing rest, choosing joy that have changed how they respond? If you feel ready to share, I'd love to hear your story in the comments, because I believe your experience might help someone else find the courage to start their own quiet transformation. And if this message touched something in you, if it made you feel seen, even just for a moment, I'd love for us to stay connected. This space we're building here isn't about advice and answers. It's about presence. It's about walking each other home through the seasons of life that no one really prepares us for. So if you'd like to keep hearing messages like this, click subscribe, not for the clicks, but so we can keep meeting here, like old friends, honest, tired sometimes, but always open-hearted. And as we close today, I want to leave you with this. You don't need to be younger to be respected. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You only need to be true. And you, my dear friend, are more than enough just as you are. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, walk gently, speak softly, and stand firmly in your light. You've already taught them more than you know, and now, in silence, you're teaching them the most important lesson of all.